Libby, and I'm going to be looking at non-communicable diseases today. Health is a state of physical and mental well-being. Disease is a major contributor to ill health. Other factors include diet, stress, and life situations. So disease can be subdivided into two categories. These are communicable diseases, which can be spread between organisms, and non-communicable, which cannot be spread between organisms. So, just to recap on these factors affecting health, we've got diet, stress, and life situations, and we've also got disease, which can be categorized into communicable and non-communicable. So the major contributor out of these factors is disease. And just to recap again, other contributors are life situations, stress, and diet. Disease interaction. So different diseases can interact with one another by acting together, which leads to a spiral of declining health. For example, allergies, such as asthma and skin rashes, can be triggered by an immune reaction to a pathogen. A pathogen is a microorganism that can cause disease. Cancer. So viruses occupying cells can stimulate or bring about cancers. Mental health. Physical problems can negatively impact upon an individual's mental health. And the immune system. A disease that suppresses the immune system, such as HIV, makes individuals more susceptible or likely to catching other infectious diseases. So, just to look back on what we've just learned about disease interactions, we know that diet can impact upon mental health, that HIV suppresses the immune system, and that viruses occupying cells can cause cancers. So why is HIV dangerous? As I mentioned before, this is a virus which can contribute to affecting the immune system. This is because it suppresses the immune system, which would then make someone more susceptible to catching other diseases, such as a cold or the flu. Sampling. Governments and health organizations track cases of diseases to inform their policy decisions. These can be global cases or cases in a target group called the target population. For example, the number of incidences of a particular disease in Scotland or in 60 to 79-year-olds in Manchester. As a country's population is so large, not everybody can be tested. Instead, we take a sample and assume that the pattern is true for the whole population. If 10 people in a sample of 100 people have a particular disease, then 10% of the sample has the disease. We assume that 10% of the population will also have the disease. If the population has 2,000 people, then we predict 200 people in the population have the disease. So, just to recap on sampling, if some populations are very large, we would use a sample as not everyone can be tested for the disease. The results of this sample are assumed to be true for the whole population. So just to recap, free samples in a supermarket let you try a small amount of something. Governments interview or survey small samples of the population to learn about their lifestyle and health conditions. So as I mentioned at the beginning, there are two categories of disease. So let's just remember what they are. They're communicable, which means that they can be transferred between organisms, and non-communicable, which means that they cannot be transferred between organisms. And different diseases can interact with one another, which could lead to a spiral of declining health. So an example of that was allergies. So if we were to think of a sample, let's say there's 35 people in this sample, and 70 people have a particular disease. 35 people in the sample of 70 have a particular disease. So what percentage? So we work out percentage by dividing the proportion with the disease, so 35, divided by 70 times 100. So 35 is divided by 70 is 0.5, because it's a half of 70. And so the percentage of the population with the disease is 50%. And just to recap on the definitions of those different diseases, we know that communicable can be spread. It's like the diseases themselves can communicate, if that's a good way to remember. And then non-communicable. They cannot communicate, and so they cannot spread between organisms. Let's do another practice of those sample tests. So we've got 20 people with a particular disease in a sample of 100 people overall. So that would be 20% of that population have the disease. So how many people can we predict would have the disease in the entire population of 5,000? So we want 20% of 5,000. So this could be done by timesing 0.2 times 5,000. And this would be 1,000. As 0.2 times 5,000 is 1,000. So governments and health organisations track cases of diseases to inform their policy decisions, as I mentioned before. Okay, so that's everything for non-communicable diseases. Thanks for listening.